Hello Exiles, and welcome to our build guide. Flame Wall is a quite popular supportive skill used mostly at the early stages of the game. It is a damage over time spell that has two main components: Flame Wall itself and a secondary debuff applied to any monster standing in the fire or hit by a projectile that traveled through the flames. As it turns out, it can be a very powerful standalone skill once you properly scale it with your gear and passive tree. To spread the flames, we are using the Ball Lightning spell for the convenience of built-in pierce and some base lightning damage to apply very potent shocks to increase the damage they take from the flame wall. Thanks to the Elementalist ascendancy, you can easily inflict up to 50% shock on any enemy you hit with lightning damage. For your last ascendancy passives, you can choose to also chill them with increased effectiveness or have Elemental Aegis, which works similarly to Energy Shield, but protects only against elemental damage. Either way provides enormous defensive value to the build, and you should choose the one fitting your playstyle best. At later stages, you can invest in Forbidden Jewels and have both of them for maximum effect. It is important to note that while it is burning damage, it is not an ignite. Thanks to this property, you can make use of Pain Attunement Keystone and other spell scaling modifiers, and you can ignore the monster's chances to avoid ailments or bypass proximity shields. Besides Elemental Aegis and powerful chills at your disposal, you will have high armor and evasion rating values, decent block chance, petrified blood which delays the damage you take from hits, and a bunch of life recoup and life regeneration. It is a bit clunky at first since it's a 2-button playstyle, but once you get comfortable it gets really good at clearing maps. This build can reach very high amounts of single target damage, but taking down the toughest ones will require some investments. It is an excellent league starter build. You can start with no prior preparations and gradually upgrade as you progress further and further. This build makes use of a few unique items with various price ranges, but they all are non-vital for the build functionality, just very efficient at boosting your damage. The value of unique jewels is especially volatile, as there are many variations there. The Searing Touch is a surprisingly powerful weapon for this build. It grants everything you need: block chance, a lot of damage, and additional levels for your flame wall gems. The Devouring Diadem is very impactful as it severely reduces the mana reservation of socketed auras and grants you easy access to the Eldritch Battery Keystone, which allows you to freely use the Divine Blessing setup. Without this helmet, you will have to manually spec into that keystone and change your aura setup a bit. Skin of the Lords grants a total of 4 levels for your flame wall and boosts your armor, evasion, and energy shield. The best keystone to get here would be the Glancing Blows, but any other that doesn't hurt the build is good enough. Circle of Anguish greatly improves your damage, and you can get very useful synthesis implicits, such as Arcane Surge on spell hit. Make sure to get the correct Herald modifiers, and you can further boost them with relevant catalysts. Ashes of the Stars is undoubtedly a great amulet as it boosts your damage and severely helps with mana reservation, allowing you to run 1 extra aura. Additional quality on your gems is useful, but not mandatory. Thanks to the Polaric Devastation equipped at your left ring slot, you will be able to cover enemies in ash, which slows their movement and increase the damage they take from fire damage. It is quite tricky to get useful modifiers on your Brutal Restraint Jewel, but it has the potential to grant a lot of damage or utility to your build. It also provides a lot of dexterity. With Watcher's Eye Jewel, you can get some very useful modifiers for both damage and survivability. Damage over time multiplier from Malevolence is the most impactful, but the Zealotry one is also good and much more accessible. Thanks to the combination of Forbidden Flesh and Flame Jewels, you can obtain the 5th Ascendancy notable. We recommend getting Shaper of Winter or Bastion of Elements, as going into Golem's route is very socket restrictive. Flame Wall scales very well with gem levels, so any modifiers to that are welcome. You should also look for modifiers to fire spell damage, damage over time multipliers, and effect of non-damaging ailments which will allow you to inflict maximum shocks more reliably. For your defenses, you simply want to get a lot of maximum life, resistances, and life regeneration. Initially a rare helmet is good enough, but it should be only a temporary replacement. Look for maximum life, resistances, or mana reservation efficiency there. Having an enchant that reduces the mana reservation of one of your auras will be really helpful too. You will want to eventually upgrade your weapon for a rare staff with lots of damage over time multiplier, and even more levels for your flame wall gem. Modifiers to fire spell damage are also useful, but you shouldn't focus on them as they are not as efficient as the previously mentioned ones. On your boots you should prioritize movement speed, maximum life, and elemental resistances. You can also get a bit of action speed and life regeneration thanks to the Eldritch Implicits. Modifiers from your crafting bench are also useful, as you can obtain some ailment avoidance or improved effectiveness of your shocks. On your rare gloves aim to get as much maximum life and resistances as possible. Eldritch Implicits are extremely valuable here, as you get automatic fire exposure and lots of fire damage over time multiplier with them. Your belt is another mostly defensive gear piece, you can get a lot of maximum life and resistances here. The Stygian Vice allows you to use additional Abyss Jewel, which is very helpful. With your rare Abyss Jewel try to get the Corrupted Blood immunity, ideally one that also grants maximum life and resistances. You can get a bit of damage here too, but it's a rather minuscule amount. A good rare amulet can be very impactful on your damage. Try to get additional levels for your gems and some damage over time multipliers. You can top it up with some life, resistance, or non-damaging ailment effect. If you use a rare ring, you should aim for lots of maximum life and resistances there. You can also get some damage over time multiplier with essences or craft minimum frenzy charges. If you don't have enough mana reservation efficiency for your auras, you can get it on your rare jewels. Otherwise, aim for maximum life and potent damage bonuses or more resistances. Thanks to this specific combination of notables you can get plenty of spell block and spell damage on your large cluster jewel. Try to get it on a jewel that adds only 8 passive points. Here you should look for some minor damage bonuses and some utility, such as Smoke Cloud on kill or life regeneration. Remember that Flame Wall is not an ignite, so don't use notables affecting that. Rumi's Concoction grants plenty of armor rating and some block chance to improve your survivability even more. You can also use the regular Granite Flask if you prefer magic modifiers more. Bottled Faith creates a consecrated ground on a very big area, which causes monsters standing on it to take more damage, and you will regenerate 5% of your maximum life every second. You can use a simple sulfur flask if you don't have access to this unique. For your remaining flask slots we recommend using Life Flask with bleeding removal, Quicksilver Flask with movement speed bonus, and a Quartz Flask with increased armor rating. Flame Wall creates up to 3 fiery walls that burn anything it touches, and you can use any projectile moving through the wall to inflict the burning debuff on distant enemies. All of those support gems have their awakening version available, and some of them are quite impactful as they raise your main gem levels. The Empower support is especially good in that regard, but obtaining it at the beginning can be quite challenging, so you can use the Efficacy support in the meantime. Ball Lightning is used to spread Flame Wall's debuff and inflict powerful shocks on enemies. The Combustion grants only a minor boost, so you can replace it with faster projectile support to improve the clear speed. Beware of the blind spot between the Flame Wall and you, as Ball Lightning does very little damage on its own. Determination is a very important aura that grants lots of armor rating to help you mitigate physical hits. Grace is your second defensive aura, provides you with tons of evasion rating so you can evade most of the incoming attacks. The Malevolence significantly improves your damage over time, and the duration of all your effects. Petrified Blood splits half of the incoming damage into the damage over time effect, grants you low life status, and lets you reserve some auras with your maximum life without any downside. With the mix of the Enlightened support gem, mana reservation efficiency on your rare jewels, and enchant on your helmet you will be able to fit all of those auras into your setup. Zealotry improves your spell damage and occasionally creates consecrated ground when you land a critical strike with the Ball Lightning. The Divine Blessing paired with an Eldritch Battery Keystone allows you to benefit from one additional aura at the cost of recasting it every so often. If you don't have enough mana reservation efficiency, drop out the Zealotry and use this setup with the Malevolence aura instead. Herald of Ash improves the fire damage you deal with spells. It works very well with the Circle of Anguish ring. Vitality grants you a lot of life regeneration, which is very important to keep you alive after taking a hit. Those two should be linked with the Arrogance support to reserve your life instead of mana. Half of your life pool will be inactive due to Petrified Blood anyway. Flammability lowers the fire resistances of cursed enemies. Casting it manually has the highest effectiveness as you can benefit from a high gem level and quality bonus. Flame Dash teleports you in a short distance and leaves a path of fire on the ground. You can store up to 3 charges, and the first one you use is going to be an instant cast. Molten Shell is a very strong guard skill that covers you in the fiery barrier that absorbs incoming damage and improves your armor rating during its duration. The Vol version grants an even stronger barrier, but you can't spam it too often. Stone Golem is a quite helpful minion that grants you plenty of life regeneration. As an Elementalist, you have easy access to more golems and their improved buffs, but it is hard to find enough sockets for them. In the second act of the campaign, kill all bandits to get 2 bonus passive skill points from Aramir. For your major Pantheon power, we recommend picking up and upgrading the Soul of the Brine King, which grants you immunity to freeze and stun locks. It also reduces the effect of chill on you. As for your minor Pantheon power, you should pick the Soul of Shikari, as your defense against damage over time effects such as poison is quite weak. This build is extremely good for leveling. In fact, the Flame Wall is often recommended to use while leveling with similar builds, such as Ignite. You have access to very powerful notables that boost your fire damage, as well as defensive ones, so you are not too squishy during the campaign. You can also use the Pain Attunement Keystone, making Petrified Blood the best damage aura in the early game, as it grants 30% more spell damage when on low life. Your passive tree is plain and simple. You want to focus on fire spell damage, maximum life, mana reservation efficiency, and some block chance. The Aura Mastery that grants you life reservation efficiency is quite important to make sure your Herald doesn't reserve over 50% of your maximum life. The Eldritch Battery Keystone is not that far from your main pathing, so you can pick it up there before you acquire the Devouring Diadem Helmet. The Brutal Restraint in the Witch area grants a lot of dexterity. You can use the cheapest one just for that purpose, and replace it with a more useful one later on. Your Cluster Jewels are not as impactful as they are with Ignite builds, so you can focus more on the utility they grant over raw damage. That is everything we got for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of our content, please leave a like and subscribe. Have a good day, and see you in the next one.